What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Late Night Live with myself tonight. Just me tonight, which, it's not a bad thing unless you don't like me and you like the other people who are on the channel, which is absolutely fair enough, which everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but it is just me, and it feels like it's been a while since it's been just me and you guys. So looking forward to this, actually. We've got some interesting topics. Joshua Zirkzee wants to leave Manchester United, at least on loan, in January. We all know we've got the World Cup coming up. That's going to play a big factor in a lot of these fringe players that we've got. So we'll talk about him and the impact he's had in the squad since joining. We've had some reports surrounding Jason Wilcox and Omar Barada speaking with the squad, getting feedback on Ruben Amorim. We have a deal with Saudi Arabia pending in regards to playing a friendly, which could bring extra finances in, and according to the manager, it's something that we have to do. And also, we're going to discuss Harry Maguire's options at the end of the season as his contract runs out, and he's either going to have to take a big pay cut to stay at United or look at options elsewhere. So do you still want him to stay, or do you want to move him on and maybe bring in another younger centre-back, someone like a Euro, etc.? Because obviously his wages are going to free up quite a big space on the wage bill. So they're the topics we're going to go through today. I want to start with Zirkzee, but just to get kind of a bit of feedback on the stream, just let me know if you can hear me and everything's all well and good. I just want to double check because the stream thing's been a little bit weird on YouTube Studio. So if everything's all well and fine, I mean, I'm going to go through with the show anyway, but yeah, just let us know in the comment section as we go through these topics. Joshua Zirkzee, so Nathan Salt and Chris Wheeler, both who have relatively good ties when it comes to Manchester United, especially kind of around the training ground and player specific. Are saying Joshua Zirkzee frustrated with his situation at the club and is looking to leave in January. He wants to be in top form for the 2026 World Cup. It's a weird one with Zirkzee for me at the moment because I feel like the technical capabilities are there. I think like he's a very quality player. I'm not speaking right tonight. It's been a long day. Excuse me, people. He's very good technically. You can play it into him. He protects it. He's a bit of a magnet. He drags kind of defenders towards him. Remember that kind of situation in the FA Cup against Arsenal where he had Gabriel and Saliba on toe. So we've seen the capabilities that this kid has. We've seen that he's got something. It seems like Amorim leans more towards athletic, physical players. Now, that's not to say Zirkzee isn't a physical guy. Like, he's strong, obviously. That's plays into his game, how he can hold defenders off and link play. Like, he is physically strong, but he has no pace. He's not fast at all. And if you look at the players that Ruben Amorim usually has in the attacking areas, Šeško, Mbeumo, and Cunha are all rapid. And I know me and Chivy have gone back and forth on this before, having a player like Zirkzee in that, let's say, call it the false nine kind of area, some people think, well, that might work better with someone like Mbeumo and Cunha, and why haven't we tried that? That I cannot argue with, because that, I believe, at least experiment it and see what's what. I feel like we've only ever played Zirkzee like in one of the 10s, and every now and then we played him as a 9. But whenever anyone spoke about him, I remember Thiago Motta, when he was at Bologna, the quotes coming out from him. And I remember Ruben Amorim speaking about him, saying that he needs to be more selfish. He's not like a pure kind of hungry, bloodthirst striker who just thinks about goals. He thinks about other people around him. And that can work in certain setups. We've seen that with the likes of Bobby Firmino, who are more kind of facilitators for the team. But the thing is with Firmino as well, he would chip in with 15 goals or whatever. So he's not scored enough goals. Last season, people might argue he's not had enough opportunities. Last season, he scored, I think it was like 3 or 4 goals max, which, if you're paying 40 million quid for a striker, you want a little bit more than that. So I think there's two sides to it. Do I think he's a good player? I think he's technical quality. I'd put him up there with anyone in the team. I think he's that good. But there's other sides of his game where I think obviously he needs to improve significantly. I do think he deserves more opportunities. I don't think we've seen him enough. Again, the reason for that, I don't know. I really don't know, because you think about Rasmus Højlund, he would always play him over Zirkzee. Even Rasmus hadn't scored for 10 games, he would always play him, and Zirkzee would be more of a cameo outfit. So sometimes you just have players who don't necessarily marry up to what the coach wants. And that's not to say he can't go on to another team and do really, really well and look good. But I don't see him being a full-time figure in this Amorim setup. I think it'll be Benjamin Šeško, and I think Zirkzee will be a rotational option there. I think Mateus Cunha will be a rotational option there, because he doesn't want to try him in the 10s either. Because the 10s are dynamic and they're attacking and the great 1v1. Zirkzee isn't necessarily someone who's going to run at a defender. He's someone who always drops in and has to rely on other people around him. So, yeah, interesting. I don't blame him at all. I think he's probably in a similar boat to Kobbie Mainoo, right, in terms of what's going to happen with his future for the World Cup. Everyone wants to play in the World Cup. Everyone wants to be the star. And regardless how good of a footballer you are, if you are not playing on a consistent basis, you're not going to get picked for your national team. Even Kobbie Mainoo, we all know Kobbie Mainoo is a massive talent, but he ain't going to get picked if he's not playing, because you don't want a rusty player coming into the team who needs a few weeks to get up to speed. We're talking about tournament football. They need to be ready to hit the ground running. And people might throw Luke Shaw back in my face and say, well, they held him on there. Didn't work out very well in the long term, did it? So, yeah, I like Zirkzee. I want to see a bit more of him. Maybe we will when the FA Cup comes around. Maybe we'll see more cameos from him there. But it feels like Amorim's going with specifically Cunha Mount, Šeško up top, and Bumo on the right. Pretty much that's nailed on. Ahmad at wing back. Dalot, Dorgu, and Mazraoui kind of rotational options there. And then the predominant centre-backs are De Ligt, Shaw, and Yoro. Maguire rotation, Heaven rotation, although we've not seen that yet either. And yeah, we've got one game a week at the minute, so it's hard to give everyone game time. Everyone's just getting little 5-10 minute cameos. Maybe there's something in the cameos that they're getting as well. You know, when people question, oh, why is he bringing on centre-backs? Does that not disrupt kind of the rhythm and the consistency and things like that? I don't know. But maybe there is something in it to say, well, you know, a bit of leeway. I'll give you 10-15 minutes to try affect the game. You didn't really do much. Players want to be starting. You want to get some fluidity in the game. You saw with Mason Mount. Mason Mount, whenever he was kind of coming in and out of the squad, it wasn't really having much of an effect, and that's because you need to get the wheels in motion. And that was down to his side as well, because he was getting injured quite a lot. But you saw now he's had a run of games. I'd play him over Cunha the way he's playing. I'm not saying he's a better player than Cunha, but he's in better form, and he's doing better for the team. So I would start him. You should play players based on merit, not on who your favourites are. So we'll see what happens with Joshua Zirkzee and Kobbie Mainoo for that matter, because we had some more reports coming out before online that Mainoo's also looking for a loan move in January. He's unhappy with game time. He's not impressed. He's grafting his arse off basically. You've seen all the reports around him getting kind of a new chef and working on his fitness, and still lack of opportunities. And I think that will never change until Bruno Fernandes finally moves on. I think if Bruno Fernandes goes to Saudi Arabia next year and that offer's still on the table, that's when you'll start seeing Mainoo kind of push through the ranks. You would like to think, because if not then it's kind of like, well, he's destined to not be a fit with Ruben Amorim and Man United. So those two players, definitely ones to keep an eye on as we head into the winter period in January. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of headlines surfacing throughout that full month that Mainoo on loan here. He's got 5 or 6 clubs interested in Europe. I'm sure there will be clubs back in Italy who will take Joshua Zirkzee off our hands, because, again, you've seen it's just a tried and tested thing that works. Whenever any of our players go back but whenever they go to Italy, they seem to be successful. There's an endless list. Lukaku, really good. Scott McTominay, really good. We've seen Rasmus go back, and he's killing it for Napoli now as well. So yeah, if you're a club around, especially when they've already played in the Italian league, you know, Zirkzee played at Bologna, Rasmus was at Atalanta, so they know the league well and they know the defenders, and maybe that's easier for why they can kind of acclimatise, even if it is at a different team. But more on the squad front, we had Rob Dawson from ESPN reporting before that Omar Barada and Jason Wilcox have spoken to members of the United squad, including the captain Bruno Fernandes and the leadership group, and are convinced there's continued support for Ruben Amorim. Now, there's been a bit of back and forth on this, hasn't there? There's been kind of the media's angle. We saw all the stuff with Gary Neville, and I'm not talking about the flag stuff, because my God, that's gone off today. I'll save that for a political channel. Don't want to get into that. But the stuff in regards to the criticism is affecting the players. And kind of the old school thinking around that, and the players from Gary Neville's era and Roy Keane's era would kind of be like, if you can't take criticism at Man United, you shouldn't play for the club, which I agree with, first and foremost. I think you've got to have thick skin if you're playing at United, because it can bring any world-class player down. It can bring any world-class manager down. We've seen it. The evidence is there. It's, you've seen it. So that I do agree with. But turn around and not even suggest that it could be affecting him. Can you imagine when he was coming into the team and he's seeing, Alan Hansen, when he turned around, I think Neville mentioned this when he was doing the podcast and saying that, are you never going to win anything with kids, not good enough. I'm sure that affected him. Now, did they go on to win games and do well and win trophies? Yeah, exactly. So you could turn around and say, fuck you, Alan Hansen. I did my job. But to say that it didn't affect him, like, come on. And especially nowadays, the climate of social media, everyone's a pundit now, which is funny because I've got a microphone in my hand and I'm talking about football, but I'm just a fan expressing an opinion like you guys, right? But I feel like whenever the legends express an opinion, it weighs so heavy. When Roy Keane says one thing, the whole world knows about it. So if you're Bruno Fernandes, or if you're who we criticised recently, Roy Keane, Luke Shaw, for example, and you're hearing these words from a legend like Roy Keane, who's 8 Premier League titles, obviously won Champions Leagues, etc., then it's going to weigh on you heavily. And as a player, you should be able to take criticism, but I think it's bound to affect him. The human, right? I suppose is what I'm getting at. So yeah, in regards to this kind of leadership group and the captain, and they're saying there's continued support for Amorim, it's nice to see, because a lot of the times previously under managers, when it got a little bit tough, you'd see the words, "Oh, we don't really like training in the dark. We don't really like his methods." Under Ragnick, you'd hear things like, what was he calling his assistant now? The one with the AirPods. Was it Ted Lasso or something like that? Like, super disrespectful to this almost genius of German football. Now, obviously, it didn't work out with United on an interim basis, but when it comes to his knowledge of the game, it's pretty up there. And yeah, I don't know, you'd always see these stories around November time kind of circulating, but to see this, I think it's quite refreshing that there's continued support. And again, fans who are watching the club may disagree with it and go, why are you supporting a guy who's got this win percentage? Why are you supporting the guy who's breaking this record since the World War? Why are you supporting this guy who's doing this and blah, blah, blah? And you know what? The more I've looked into this, I think after the Grimsby game, I've washed my hands with Amorim. I was kind of like, I can't. If we're capable of doing this, then we're capable of doing it against any team, with all due respect to Grimsby, especially in the Premier League. Like, it's going to be a long season. But I think with the way Ruben Amorim explained it, I had to go back and watch the games. I'd be like, okay, let's have a look. So I went through kind of the Arsenal game, Grimsby, City, all these games, right, where obviously some of the games we wasn't good enough. But actually, if you look at the goals that we've conceded, a lot of them, they're not down to tactics. They're just down to basic errors. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the kind of a saying where you can't coach a donkey. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could be the best coach in the world, right? And they say, go and win a tournament with that pub team over there. Do you know what I mean? You've got Ronnie Pickering at left back. You've got Al Said at centre back. You've got this. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can only coach the quality that you've got. And I think the issue with some of our players, they have this mentality ingrained in them, or they have a mistake in them where it can happen at any moment. You could be really doing well, control the game, and bang, someone makes a mistake. And I think a lot of that started with the goalkeeper. It's no coincidence we've kept our first clean sheet of the season with Le Mans in goal. No coincidence at all. And look at the goals at Onana at times. And then that becomes like a rut. It becomes like a bad air, like a bad smell surrounding the room. And people, and then that drags people down, and everyone, and it piles on top of each other, and then it just becomes a total fucking disaster, which is what happened last season. But I think in order to truly turn that cog and turn that mentality, maybe you just need to bite your teeth and get through it. And hopefully you reap the rewards. Now, obviously, it's going to get to a point where it can't be continuous, and it's going to become inevitable where they say, Ruben, you're going to have to go, mate, if the results don't improve. Anfield's going to be a very tough game. But if they get something out of that, don't forget Liverpool 3 wins as well. 3 games without a win, should I say. There's a lot of pressure on them to perform. Imagine if United go and beat them at Anfield, they'll be under massive pressure. We'll be 2 points behind them. You can flip the narrative of the season. But we said the same thing against Brentford. Now's the time to kick on. If you go and win this game, fans will get behind you. You start getting a bit more support. But if you go to Anfield now and you get absolutely battered, it'll change just like that. And we all know it will. If it's another 5-0, 6-0, which could be on the cards, that game, honestly, I know it's 2 weeks away, but I'm already thinking about that mental side of it going into Anfield. The crowd are going to be loud as fuck. They're going to be behind the players. It don't take much to get up for a game between United and Liverpool, does it, from a player's perspective? And to get back on track, that'll be the one that they're licking the lips at the most. And with the quality that they've got on show, anything could happen. I mean, I know Isaac hasn't started well. I know Zirkzee hasn't started well. But Salah's had a poor start to the season as well. Across the board. But is there anyone else that I think the same thing as me, where I'm like, they could just turn up fresh, back from the international break, had a couple of weeks off, time for the dust to settle, and then they just click on that day and they batter us. So it can only be a good thing, the squad being cohesive, the squad being together. I want to see these players start to form partnerships, and that won't happen if Amorim keeps chopping and changing. That's one of many things that I struggle with the team and the manager. That how do you expect us to form any partnerships or any real consistency when you're chopping and changing all the time? When you go throughout our team, how many positions can you look at and lock down and say, I know he's going to start there 9 times out of 10? You can't really. I mean, Šeško, since he's coming now, will be the number 9. You'd expect him now to start games, pretty much. And Mbumo, maybe you could say, yeah, he's locked down. Cunha isn't, because it's Cunha or Mount. Ahmad at wing-back, he started in the more, when we've played teams near the bottom, or Sunderland, who've been promoted. But then Arsenal, you're playing like players like Diego Dalot. Dalot started at left wing back last game. Dorgu wasn't there. I think he was being rested. Midfield, majority of the time it's going to be Casemiro and Bruno. You probably know that. And then the centre backs have been chopping and changing all the time. We've just changed the goalkeeper again. So you're going through it and you're like, how are they going to form partnerships? Start playing Ahmad and then Mbumo together on a consistent basis. Let that build. Because it's never going to build if you just swap sides and putting Ahmad on the left and doing this and doing that. And start having a consistent back three as well. I think that will really help. Have Yoro, Delay, and Shaw, let's say, whoever it is, playing games together, understanding the pattern. Same thing with Son Le Mans as well. Have that consistency. I think all the best teams do that. Maybe City's a bit of an anomaly because Pep would tweak quite a lot. But I think about the Liverpool team, not the one who just won the league recently, but then when they had Trent, Van Dijk, Konate, and Robertson, then they would have Wijnaldum, Jordan Henderson, Mohamed Salah, Robert Firmino, Sadio Mane. Like, that would be their team. You know it week in, week out, 9 times out of 10. We don't have that with us yet. And maybe Amorim, being the kind of emotional manager that he is, maybe he does get into his head a little bit, think, oh, no, I can't do that. Okay, we'll swap and we'll change that. We'll do this, bring him in there and do... No. Sometimes football is a very simple game. I think you need to simplify it. So, yeah, happy that the squad are together. Let's see how together they are after the Anfield game, whatever happens when we play Liverpool. Now, I'm going to move the conversation on again. I think Nathan Salt and Chris Wheeler, again, been very busy bees tonight, speaking about this potential friendly in Saudi Arabia. So, Man United could bank more than £10 million if they strike a deal to visit Saudi Arabia this season, according to industry sources. The 3 options Man United is considering the possible agreement to travel to Saudi Arabia mid-season: Riyadh Season Cup. They would face Al Hilal and Al Nassr, $5 million per match, cash prize if they win the tournament, commercial income during their stay. Isn't Ronaldo with Al Nassr as well? Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if that's right. If he is, imagine the marketing around that. Ronaldo against United. you probably get about $1 million from that alone, with all like the merch and stuff that you could sell. I mean, that would do crazy numbers. And then you got an exhibit match. We'd face the Saudi All-Star team, and that's a revenue close to £5 million. And then a single game would organise a visit to Saudi Arabia. Royal family would face Al Nassr, earnings around £5 million. So there's a couple kind of packages that they're looking at. The thing with Saudi is, a lot of people have their own opinions and political views of it, and the sports washing element of it. United are going to do this regardless anyway, because with us being out of Europe and Europa League and no Champions League football, they're going to look at things like this. And loads more teams are doing it now. I mean, you're even seeing league games, I think in Italy and Spain, that are going to be played in like Perth, Australia and shit like that, which I completely disagree with. But this is it's different, right? It's going to be a friendly. It's going to be, I'm guessing, during some form of international break or around Christmas. So if that happens, then obviously it's going to be money in the bank. Similar to when we finished last season and they went off to Malaysia, didn't they? And I think they made around £10 million from that. So they're going to look at things like this, other revenue incomes, and look to kind of tap into them. I have my own feelings about Saudi Arabia, but it's not for me to put my opinion out there. I think we've said it plenty of times on the channel. I don't want to force it down people's necks. It is what it is. People will watch, some people won't. People have the morals and stuff. Yeah. But like I said, it's not going to stop United going. United will go, they'll take the bag, they'll take the money, and they'll come back and they'll do whatever it is with it, pay a Klarna payment off the Carrington Training Centre or whatever. I have no idea. But that looks like it's going to go forward. So, yeah, keep an eye out around the December, November kind of period for when that happens. Last story I'm going to discuss tonight, and this is coming from Alex Crook. So, sometimes when we say take it with a pinch of salt, this isn't even take it with a fucking cup of salt. This is take it with a giant jar of salt and chuck it over your shoulder, because for me, whenever Alex Crook talks, I'm kind of like, it is, I think it's bollocks a lot of the time. But this is a news show. We discuss news together. So listen, Harry Maguire wants to stay at Manchester United, but is likely to have to take a hefty pay cut in order to do so, and is considering his options. Usually, when I look at things like this, so if you ask me about Casemiro, I say, do you know what, for both parties, probably best by the end of his contract if he moves on. He's on £350,000 a week. I know he's a heavily experienced player, but you're not getting the best years of Casemiro here. He's one of the best paid players in Premier League, and he isn't one of the top 10, 15 midfielders in the Premier League. So you can see how that can kind of doesn't coincide. With Maguire, I do think it's slightly different, especially if he does take a bit of a wage cut. Let's say you're getting down to 150k, right? You've got someone there who has been through hell and back at Man United and has experienced everything, almost. Being the captain, having the captaincy taken off him, being in the media storm with everything that happened in Greece, I think was with his sister or something. We had like the court case. The most abused player on social media. Everything that was happening with England, and yeah, like he's been through everything. So I think maybe from a young player's perspective, when they're coming through and maybe they're struggling a little bit, I don't think there's a better example out there than someone like Harry Maguire to speak to and say, listen, Harry, I'm struggling. I don't know what to do in this scenario. He's going to get his fucking thing out and go, yep, been through that, mate. This is how I dealt with it. This is probably what you should do. Just having experienced players around, I think, is invaluable. We don't have a lot of experienced players. You see the stuff around the training ground that Maguire's really good with the young players as well. There was something the other day, I can't remember what young player it was. It might have been Shea Lacer, I think, when Maguire was kind of introducing him maybe to the first team and going through stuff with him. And Bruno's like that as well. You need players like that. Whenever Jordan Henderson gets picked for a World Cup qualifier, or someone mentions him in a game or whatever it is, people turn their nose up at players like that. I don't think people realise how important people like him are in the dressing room to have that figure, because sometimes the dressing room gets a little bit out of control. Young players think they're better than they are. Egos get out of control. You need those kind of players to keep them in check, and just to have the stripes and the medals there to say, I've been there and done it. And having Maguire around it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, genuinely. It really, really wouldn't. So if you want to stay at United on a reduced wage cut, maybe on a bit of a rolling contract, as someone who can obviously operate in the back three, can come on, you know, last 10, 15 at times, can play cup games, I'm all right with that. I'm all right with that. It's not going to drain you financially, is it? You're talking rolling year contract. You're talking reduced wage cut. So, yeah, and I'm sure, to be honest with you, if I was a betting man, I would probably suggest Maguire wants to stay, and he wants to be there at the club, and he's settled, his family's settled. He's obviously happy, but again, sometimes money talks. Someone might come in with an offer, Italy, and say, listen, you're not done yet. You come here, you can win Serie A, you can do this, you can do that. McTominay's just gone to Napoli and got MVP and won a fucking Scudetto or whatever, so, you know, I'm sure he'll probably have decent options, and why not? If I was a club in Italy, I'd be looking at the likes of Maguire and saying, yeah, get in my fucking defence, mate. Even if I'm Inter Milan, if they're playing players like a Cherby at centre-back and winning league titles, there's no reason why Maguire can't go there and be super successful. So it all depends on what he wants, really, and where he's at in life. But personal take, I don't mind. I'm happy to have him. Look, very quick late night live. I say very quick. It's been 25 minutes, but I had to go live. There's a few things that I want to discuss. We spoke about Zirkzee. We spoke about the squad back in Amorim still, and speak to Wilcox and Nomar Barada. We've spoken about the Saudi Arabia deal, the friendlies that's going to generate around £10 million, and Harry Maguire's future as well. So hopefully you've enjoyed the show. If you have, please do leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching.